What's up, gang? Today we're finally going over the mods that I did to the flagship of the Summer Wave 75315, the Imperial Light Cruiser. So we'll go ahead and hit the exterior, all the things that I've done around there, and then we'll head inside. So we'll start with the normal review format, and we'll actually head up to the front here. So you can very obviously see that I've plated up this interior space here. I'll do a nice before screenshot if I have one for my review. But we plated up this front interior space so it didn't look as empty underneath these wings, and it was just a little bit more filled out and more armored up. And you guys can see in between the wings there, I do still have a TIE Fighter sitting in there, but the original TIE Fighter launch feature with the Technic arm that went into the interior space a little bit, that's no longer there. This TIE Fighter is just sitting on there by one jumper. So this TIE Fighter itself is actually pretty neat. Once I had it assembled, I didn't realize it when I was making it, so I'm not going to act like I did this on purpose. But it follows the normal designs of the Sentinel and the Lambda class shuttles, the Imperial transport shuttles, with the large fin on top and then the two wings folding out to the side. So ultimately, it just happens to fit in the Imperial Navy really well, just with a nice little TIE Fighter design on it. And you can see, thankfully, the set came with a nice TIE Fighter cockpit piece on the front there. So we tossed that on the front, and then we have one blaster cannon on the bottom for some offensive capability. And then classic, with any miniature TIE Fighter, you have to have a red stud to represent the twin ion engines on the back. So then actually underneath this TIE Fighter hangar bay, I added one small cannon right there, but I wanted to use the large cylinder pieces so it looked like a big orbital bombardment cannon. But then pretty much other than plating up these interior spots right here so it's a little more full and doesn't look as empty in there, I don't think we've really changed around much in this front area. Moving down the sides, we may have changed one or two things with the greebling, one of the grills maybe, or a few of the plates sitting here or there, but overall not too much going around on there. I may have swapped out a few plates on the top that may have been like dark gray up here that I swapped out to light gray a little bit, but for the most part it remains the same. The things you could see that obviously didn't remain the same were the turrets. And these turret builds were actually meant to emulate what the turrets look like in Star Wars Rebels. Now I know this is based off of Moff Gideon's Imperial Light Cruiser, not a Star Wars Rebels era Light Cruiser, so the cannons could be different canonically on Moff Gideon's cruiser, but this is the design that I went for from Star Wars Rebels. And you can see what they look like on the ship. They look really clean, really sleek. They're actually much lower to the actual hull of the ship, unlike the spring-loaded turrets that were built up on actually a brick. So they're much lower and much sleeker, and they all are pretty much just the one light gray color, which I was really glad I was able to accomplish. And we'll actually go ahead and rip one off so you can get a closer look at it. The Beskar Spear saves us again as a nice little display stick, but this is the turret that we're working with. So you can see on the front side there, I used the two black plates to represent a nice little like visor or windshield from the inside where the gunners would be sitting. And then on either side, of course, you have the big, large turbo laser barrels that can rotate up a little, but it does have this curved plate on the backside, so they can only rotate up so much before that plate actually starts popping off a little. But they can angle up just about this much before you start popping off that plate, so you still can hit some targets pretty up high. Now, if you guys know me, I don't really go for the whole snot design, studs not on top design, too often, but for these turrets, they are super clean in universe, and with the reference photo I was using and the pieces I had before me, it was just too good of an opportunity to pass up. So I went ahead and tried to eliminate as many studs as I could. There are still these ones on the outside that represent the joints of the barrels, but that's pretty much where the only studs remain on this entire set. I went ahead and tossed some flat plates down there underneath to cover up those studs a little bit, and help fill out the empty space when they're sitting in the level position facing forward. And then just on this backside, you can see I use these curved angle pieces that like slope down, or in this case forward, to help fill up this empty space and really curve it into the main section of the turret. And I'm incredibly happy with how these turrets look. If you guys want a tutorial for these, let me know. They're based, like I said, on the Star Wars Rebels Arc Winnings turrets, and I think I accomplished that pretty well, along with still making a very successful Lego turret. But other than that, on the exterior, we can now head up to the bridge, and then you can see I didn't really change much here, just change around some of the plates so it's a little smoother up here. I added a, you've seen it on many sets where I just add a nice circular piece to represent some kind of airlock, and a lot of you guys might think that an airlock right here is very strange, and I completely agree with you. That's why in my head when I'm playing with this, that this is an emergency airlock for anybody who's sitting on the bridge if they can't make it down to one of these two side airlocks. An escape pod or a rescue ship or something can just dock on the back of the bridge here real quick. Heading down to the main hull area, you can see I extended this out just by one, smoothed it out in the middle there. Not much going on. But then moving back, you can see I added two turrets on either side near these TIE Fighter hangar bays. And speaking of those hangar bays, just because we went over the one up front, nothing has changed on these ones. These are exactly unchanged from the official set. But then moving up to these turrets, it's actually made out of pieces from the spring-loaded shooter turrets from the original set up front. These are just some spare pieces I had sitting around, and I figured the Arquitans could use some more firepower. Only 2 turrets to defend the entire thing is a little weak, so I went ahead and tossed these on the backside to cover up the rear. But then moving back from behind the turrets, I filled up this negative space that was in between the engines here. I don't know why LEGO didn't do that by default. It was very simple and very easy to just toss some plates in there. But then from filling up the negative space down here, we'll move on to the backside with the engines. So on this backside, you can see I got closer to the proper number of engines that this set should have had by default, but I didn't quite get it all the way there with 2 more sitting where the Technic structure is. But I did add 2 more engines on either side on these little plates that fill up this greebling here. And it looks really good, makes the ship look a little bit more advanced and a little bit faster than the normal cruiser. But now that we've hit everything on the outside, we can go ahead and head on to this interior compartment. And I didn't actually add any other interior compartments, so it is just this same large one that came with the set. Alrighty guys, so folding up this main hatch that came with the set, we will see all the interior mods that I've done. Now it is pretty bright in there, reflecting off all the white stormtroopers and the light gray, so we'll see if we can focus that out. But there is quite the bit going on in here. Now, I was pretty happy with the interior by default on the original set, but it was pretty lackluster if we're being honest. It was just a table sitting in the middle and then some control panels on this back wall. And it really could have been more. It definitely had the space to be more, as you can see here. So we'll go ahead and go over what I did individually. And we'll also rip out the minifigures. I just had them in there to show you the amount of play space that we have. So onto this interior space, you can see everything that changed without any of the minifigures getting in the way. Now, I did really like the table build from the original set, so I knew I wanted to keep all those pieces with the nice stickers and the nice control panels together, so I went ahead and just minimized it, and I actually used some Marvel, like Iron Man repulsor pieces to simulate some kind of like star map, some large galaxy map so they're plotting their next course. And then on this backside here, I kept the control panels from the original set. Like a lot of these other sets that you see, I went ahead and added a coffee cup in there in case anybody needs a nice little energy boost. But then above the control panels, and then just underneath the hinge that holds on the top, you can see I made a nice little dark saber display case. Now, if I had more Translight Blue, I would put it behind a Translight Blue screen so it looks like it's like hidden away behind a ray shield so nobody could get to it. But then from here, we'll actually head on to this left side, and you can see I added a nice little private bedroom back here. And I was pretty surprised that I was able to fit it in there. I went ahead and added an archway to really seclude it off from the rest to give some simulation that a door would pop up here. But really that it's a separate room and it's a private area for somebody to be sleeping in. But a very simple bed build. It's just built on one of those little hinges that allows you to put plates and bricks at different little angles. And a nice little callback to Star Wars Rebels Season 2 or 3. I added this just nice orange little cone right there to emulate that rock that Agent Kallus came back with from the Geonosian moon with Zeb. And then just at the foot of the bed, I added a blaster pistol in case anybody's trying to start trouble in the middle of the night. So because this lid sits on here a little weird, we do kind of have to get it a bit of a different angle, but you can see that I kept the standard control panels for the what I presume is gunner seats for the side cannons on either side. So I went ahead and kept those on there because they were in a really nice position. But then this space that originally housed the TIE Fighter launching arm that would launch your TIE Fighter out, I went ahead and turned it into a nice little weapon rack. And you actually can still sit a minifigure at this table right here. It's a little awkward, you do have to position the blasters in a certain way, but you can still fit 4 people gathered around this table. But I'm awkwardly really proud of just this tiny, simple little weapon locker build. It is at a slight angle, so it's sitting angled with the walls right there. But I'm really proud of that little weapon locker. If you somehow want a tutorial for that as well, just let me know. But now, I have a feeling a few of you guys have been eyeing this and wondering why I'm saving it for last. You can see I have my Dark Trooper in a little container over there, and I have an extra control panel sitting over here. So in Mando Season 2, you see the Dark Troopers in the Light Cruiser. They come out of this very like ominous chamber, this little medical area that they've all been sitting in this pretty much like a Bacta tank or a holding cell pretty much. So you can see on this Dark Trooper container, I went ahead and added one of the control panels from, I believe that's from like old LEGO Star Wars sets. I don't know if they make this piece anymore, to simulate all the lights and the buttons you see just in Star Wars ships everywhere. Just underneath that, you can't really see it because on the inside it's very dark. But it is actually a translucent blue window piece from like a Lego City chopper. So I use that on there so you do have a window to look into your subject. You can see how they're doing, monitor all their vitals and all that fancy jazz. I added one of the blaster pistols on top to make some kind of tubing feeding into the cell, feeding in some kind of oxygen, chemicals, whatever it may be. But the thing I really like about this cell is I couldn't make it too bulky or else I would eliminate a lot of minifigure space and it just wouldn't look too good. My original design for this was incredibly bulky, very ugly. It opened really awkward and it just took up way too much space. So with this final design that we have here, I'm very happy with it. It's very sleek. Doesn't take up a lot of room, and it's pretty close to the wall still. So the way the door opens is actually with this hinge right here. It doesn't just fold open because then it just hits that wall. This hinge is actually on a jumper, just offset on a jumper. So you can just peel the door to the right, and then this will hinge in between the two studs right there. But with the door open, it actually sits out of the way. You won't be putting any minifigures over there anyway, so it doesn't take up a lot of the usable space in there. But now you can see our Dark Trooper in his little cell. So you can see I have the Dark Trooper sitting in there in his nice little cell. We of course had to peel off the shoulder armor because it wouldn't fit in there otherwise. But luckily LEGO went above and beyond with the minifigure printing on the Dark Trooper, so he has the exact same printing on his chest print anyways. So the Dark Trooper actually does sit in there at a slight angle. You can see his minifigure hands are bent upside down and a little bit forward. And that's because he's sitting on the furthest back studs to minimize the amount of space that this cell took up. But we'll go ahead and get him back in there. He does look a little strange leaning forward like that, but with the door closed, he just looks like a normal occupant of any kind of test chamber. But then the last thing we have to go over in here is just the control panel for the Dark Trooper's chamber. It's just sitting on one clip down there, so it actually does have some posability. You can actually bend it around and move it around a little bit if you want to. But we have the one large control arm right here, and then one lever over here. A nice, very simple, sleek little control panel to control the Dark Trooper chamber. Alrighty guys, so that pretty much covers this entire interior space that we went over. Added a nice little personal quarters for probably Moff Gideon or some high-ranking officer. A nice display case for both the Dark Trooper and the Dark Saber. And then a nice little control panel. Alrighty guys, well that pretty much covers it for all the mods that I did to the Imperial Light Cruiser. I'm very happy with these. I'm glad I was able to upgrade these turrets and kept them very sleek, and they still look very Imperial, and they really fit with all the architecture around them. And the interior mods was great. Just by minimizing a table, we were able to maximize the amount of play space that we had and able to build a whole lot more. But I hope you guys did enjoy. I'm pretty proud of the mods that we did here. And if you want a tutorial for the turret build or the little weapon rack or the Dark Trooper container that we had on the inside, just let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace, fellas.